All right, so this is going to be our first video to launch our quick tip tutorials. They're going to cover very kind of quick, basic tricks and all sorts of different software such as Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and even 3D Rhino. And like I said, I want these to be very kind of quick, just kind of helping you improve your workflow, give you some new techniques to work with all your drawings and show you how it can be applied too. So a lot of these are gonna just go through some of our actual tools in these softwares, but again, I wanna make it a little more relevant to actual workflow processes. So it only makes sense that this first one that we do is our content aware tool in Photoshop. So this is obviously where kind of drew my tutorials and web page all from. Ironically, it's not a tool I often use. It's very kind of finicky in some cases where I know some other kind of processes that I'll, again, have videos for as well. But I wanted to kind of show this as the first one as kind of a tribute to that and demonstrate those skills. So what we are going to do is uh, show you a couple of different images on how to do it. I don't know why, but removing hot air balloons from the sky seemed like a really good example when I was trying to look at different images to try. And so there's a couple different ways you can go about it. One's pretty simple and basic, and then I'll show you how you can use some of the more advanced techniques. So it is a nice kind of quick tool to remove what you deem as artifacts or things that you just don't want in an image that you want to use. So in this case, what I liked about these hot air balloons is that a lot of them had beautiful landscapes, but maybe you just don't want these hot air balloons. And what's good too is that it's showing in this one a very interesting sky too. So it even starts to blend that. So what you're gonna do is use the marquee tool. You can use your different type of lasso tools. Obviously, the more kind of accurate you can get of the actual outline of your um, object you want to remove, the better. So that's more or less my selection. I can now right click on it, go to fill, and make sure that the contents is the content aware selection. And then I'll just hit OK. And there you go. Now the hot air balloon is gone and no one is more the wiser of knowing that there was one initially there. You can see that if you don't want to go through that process and you just want to use the basic rectangle one, it's pretty simple too. Again, I'm just going to right click, fill, content aware, oops, don't hit cancel, hit OK, and voila, it's gone. So it's a fun technique, again, to kind of just start to remove it. Maybe you don't want to remove all of them, but you just want to remove a couple. Like I said, it does a pretty good job, in this case, of kind of repeating the sky or at least blending it. There's still some kind of patterning that happens, but it's not the end of the world. So there you go. Like I said, you can obviously kind of continue to refine things and even content aware some of these things that you think might look a little pattern. So does it worse? Again, it can be very finicky where sometimes it just kind of continues to make it worse. So you just kind of have to adjust until you get that outcome you want. Like I said, it's one of those things where it's pretty easy to just go to all these different images and continue to test. So regardless of what that background is, it gets a little more interesting when you have some changes in this. So in this case, a mountain and the sky. So let's try that. So this is where you can see it gets a little bit weird, right? So if I zoom in a little bit, so instead of actually right-clicking and doing content aware, I'm gonna actually first make a more precise selection of that. Just hit enter when I get close. Now I'm gonna go to edit, content aware fill. And so this is kind of telling you what it's basing that off of. And this looks already much better. It kind of gives you a nice preview, but you generally don't want to kind of take things that aren't part of it. So it did a good job of not having all this selected, but you can always kind of deselect some of these areas because you don't want to really kind of blend with some of those elements, but you do want to blend with these other parts. So now you can kind of see how every time I change my selection, it adjusts it a little better. And now when I hit OK, it looks much better. So that's a kind of nice technique where you can use some of those more advanced features. Again, I'll show you all sorts of different varieties and options. This one's kind of cool, where I remove the hot air balloon and the shadow of the hot air balloon. So again, in this case, since there's not a lot of really crazy things going on, I can just do a simple fill that way. It's a nice, easy sky. And this is kind of interesting too, right? You would think that that would be a little more troubling. So again, I'm just gonna make my selection of that shadow area, right click. I'll try just this really quick way to see how it works. And I mean, it's really not the worst. I mean, it's hard again to kind of tell what was originally there, but if it's one of those things too, you can always just go to edit, content aware fill, and see, just make sure that you're using all, or you're only kind of basing it off of certain parts of the image. So again, I don't really want to base it off of any of that. Oops, let's kind of make that selection a little bit better. I don't really want any of that. Probably get rid of a little bit more of here. So it's just kind of basing it off of some of those things. And that starts to make it look a little bit better. Maybe I don't want some of those shrubs as part of that selection. All right, so you can kind of smooth it out a little bit more. So there you go. Yeah, we kind of want to avoid some of these shrubs in general and just base off of those cliffs. So I'm just going to try that. And that's looking much better too. So again, you can kind of just use some of these more advanced settings to get a better outcome. Again, like I said, it's a little finicky, and sometimes I'm not a huge fan of the outcome, but it does still kind of get you into a decent place. So again, I kind of like, I think it's actually a little bit worse now, but you get the point. Same thing, maybe you just don't want this hot air balloon to be bothering the zebras. So I'm just gonna go quickly. And there you go, very nicely removes it there. And so again, it's just really quick. You really don't have to waste a whole lot of time. And so I'm just gonna show one last one of something a little bit different, right? So in this case, you wanna remove maybe some of these boats from the water. So in this case, I am gonna make a more kind of accurate selection around this. So including the shadow as part of that. Now I can just do, again, edit, content aware fill. And so you can see again how it's basing that off of. And that does already do a pretty good job. Maybe I don't want to kind of utilize some of these parts. And I just want to kind of use a little bit more of the foreground water, basically kind of up to the extent of where that selection is, right? Because that's the same kind of level of texture, right? As it gets further, it gets a little bit more blurred. So you do want it to kind of resemble that proper scale too. So I'm kind of just more or less doing a sphere except for that part. And that again does a very good job of blending it right in. And then I can now just use the more general selection. Oops, that didn't do a good job at all. So again, it's one of those things where it can be a little finicky, like I said, but let's just try again with the more advanced one. See if that helps. Oops. So yeah, I don't know why it's just kind of basing it off of that. Oops, I don't know what's going on. Let's cancel that. Oh, it's somehow oh, it's because I made a new layer. So let's try that again. So make sure, because when you do that more advanced one, it creates a new layer. So if you just stick with the background, much better. Still could use a little work, but for all intents and purposes, that works pretty well. I kind of like how it even kind of still retains the reflection of that mountain. But like I said, there you go. Pretty quick and easy. Like I said, I want these to be really fast so you can just utilize some of these tricks. So good luck and have fun with them.